Hey everyone, welcome back to In a Pinch. I'm Chris, and today we're listening to Gravitas by Little People. No, actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn that down a little bit. Oh. Yeah, no, actually, today we're talking about Hope and Glory IPA, original portion, created by Connie Anderson for AG Snooze. I ordered a lot of Connie Anderson snooze on this last order. I held off on trying anything of his because, with the exception of the Cardew series that he was doing for Swedish Match, everything else everything that's currently out from him is alcoholic themed, and I am a recovering alcoholic. But curiosity finally got the better of me. There's a cigar maker. I'm gonna go ahead and just turn this music off. There we go. I'm easily distracted. There's a cigar maker, Don Jose Pepin Garcia, who is behind. Right now, his line is my father's, but he's behind. If you follow back his career, he's behind blending some of the best cigars to come out since I've been alive, definitely, and really going back way longer than that. Him and his family. If you trace him back, you'll find cigars that you never in a million years would have just happened across and tried, but you go dig them up, try them, and you fall in love with them. He's just kind of this enigmatic person. Connie Anderson, the more I hear about him, the more interviews I watch with him, the more I read about him, he's kind of got that same vibe, so I finally broke down and threw a bunch of Connie Anderson snooze on my latest order. I have gone through 2 tins of one of them, but I'm going to hold off on reviewing that for now. The first one I'm going to review is going to be this. Of all of the Connie Anderson snoozes I ordered, I only ordered 1 can of the Hope and Glory, and my fear was that it would be too beery. So far as beer goes, when I was drinking, I preferred dark, bready beers, kind of the antithesis of what IPAs are. There were a couple that I drank, mostly just to not be that guy, at a party. I enjoyed them, but my beers were dark, bready. McEwen Scotch Ale, obviously Guinness, Smithwick's, things like that. Hope and Glory IPA, just as a quick footnote, you can smell it outside the tin to a degree, and it does not smell that beery. Anyways, so yeah, created by Connie Anderson. What initially drew me to this snooze was that in the tobacco bill, Connie Anderson included Perique. Perique as a pipe smoker is something I'm very familiar with. There's a long history behind Perique. So I just cut out what may have been my longest rambling sequence ever, where I tried to hyphenate the best I could the history of St. James Perique. I might just have to save that for an entirely different, probably pipe-related video. But what drew me to this news was the fact that it has Perique in it. Now, something about Perique. Perique can mean a number of different things. Connie Anderson mentioned that he purchased his Perique from the L.A. Pochet company, which was recently purchased, well, in 2005, I guess it was 11 years ago, purchased by Mark Ryan. It was about to just shut down. Now, L.A. Pochet, as a company, puts out Acadian Perique, which is technically a blended tobacco. From the Pochet family farms comes the only straight Perique left in the country, and a whopping maybe 2 barrels a year actually released of it. Which one did he use for this snooze? I don't know. I'm hoping maybe I can tell by tasting it, but even then, I've never had Perique in my mouth before. I can pick out a Perique when I'm smoking it, and the flavors, because that's not the only place that produces Perique. It's the only place that commercially produces enough Perique that it would end up in your collection. There are small batch Periques produced throughout the St. James Parish by a number of smaller farmers, now getting a little bit of attention in the pipe world through RO series. Russ Ouellette, who has been paying a lot of attention to that area. He actually, speaking of L.A. Pochet, He had gone down and talked with them about creating an entirely new tobacco using the same process used in making Perique, but applying that to Canadian Virginias instead. And what they come up with, they call it Acadian Gold. And Russellet has the RO Acadian series out right now, which is, I believe, one of them is pure Acadian Gold, and then two of them, is it two or three, were attempts to blend with complementary tobaccos. I do intend to order definitely a tin of the straight Acadian Gold, and I might pick one of the blenders. They're pretty expensive. They're $20 for a 1 3/4 ounce tin. But I have to try it in case the stuff disappears. Anyways, whether this is straight Perique or Acadian Perique, which again is blended, the difference being Acadian Perique, which is what's put out by the LA Poche factory, and what you will find in almost every Perique blend more than 20 years old in the pipe tobacco world. It actually starts with Kentucky Green River tobacco, not to be confused with Pennsylvania Green River Burley. Kentucky Green River Burley. Not to be confused with Pennsylvania Green River Burley, which is dark air cured. Those of you in the snuff world, if you were fortunate enough to try really almost half of Chef Daniel's Old Mill offerings had some degree of Kentucky Green River Burley. But if you tried the Ivory Toast, that was almost entirely Green River Burley, which as a snuff has this great chocolatey, very bready, malty kind of scent to it. I never smoked it, but those were the notes that came out in non-combusted Kentucky Green River Burley, which is just air cured instead of being dark air cured, which is important to draw the distinction because of the process of creating Perique, including Acadian Perique, requires partial air curing prior to pressure fermenting in the whiskey barrels. You guys can read more about how Perique's made. There's a lot of information about that. And I'm not going to draw a distinction, one being better than the other, straight Perique versus Acadian Perique. They're both delicious. One's just harder to find. So anyways, that's what drew me to this. There's a lot to be said about hops. I know nothing about them, so if I were to start talking to you about the hops used by Connie Anderson or the hop oils used by Connie Anderson in this snus, I would be regurgitating something from another page. So what I'm going to do is in the description I'm going to include a link to Snooby's blog. There is a video too, but this kind of information I really think is better when you can to sit down and actually read it out. So I'm going to include a link to his blog where he talks about he talks a lot more about the hops used in the production of this snus and some other things that I'm just not honestly knowledgeable in. And I'll also include a link to Sip Art the Lips channel where he interviewed Connie Anderson about this snus and his philosophy on snus in general. And Connie obviously talks about the tobaccos he used as well as the hop oils that he used. Outside of that, I will gather some more information for the second segment of this, but for now, let's go into the opening of the tin. To start with, I like the font. All right, the tin is relatively simple compared to the other Connie Anderson tins that I have. It's pretty straightforward. There is something up here on the side in Swedish that I can't read. It's a statement from Connie Anderson, and I suppose I should have run it through a translator so I could read it to you before starting the video, but I didn't. Maybe I'll do that for the second half. But there's a quote or a statement from Connie Anderson. Otherwise, hope and glory, original portion, and of course now you have the warnings not only on the back but taking up half the damn side, more bureaucratic graffiti. The entire can design is summed up on the top. The font of Hope and Glory. If you guys know me halfway well in a personal way, you'll know I'm a big fan of tattoo art, and there's classic pinup art, and then there's modern pinup art, and there's a couple of fonts that go along with modern pinup art in the tattoo world, and this comes really close to one of them. It's not a ripoff. It reminds me a lot of that. So I appreciate that in the can design. The catch lid here is a full-size catch lid. The lighting, almost got it. Yeah, the lighting's not going to catch it very well, but there is an AG seal on the inside of the catch lid. And now I've been waiting all day to crack this. Alright. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. Alright, so... Ooh. Alright, so for starters, these are extremely moist portions. I mean, oh my god, that's like there's just oil bursting through this portion. If you look, if the light will catch it, the lid. I don't know if you can... it's not catching. This lid is just covered in oil. Let me see some of that. You see that? That oil on my finger? It's just from the lid. That's not a bad thing. I'm just noting that I have never seen such a wet portion of my life. The smell out of the tin. Oh. Honest to God, I'm at a complete loss for how to describe it. I'm certain that a lot of what I'm smelling is the hops, which, like I said, I'm not very knowledgeable in hops. To approach this as somebody with no background in anything, I would describe it as citrusy. I can't put my finger on what citrus, but citrusy. A citrus and spice. Something bitter, but not in a bad way. Something kind of raisiny. Dark fruit, raisins, pepper. You know, set aside the citrus, and actually, the best way to describe this, I finally thought of it, in wine. If you've ever had a good pungent Syrah, and I'm not talking about like Yellowtail or anything like that, but like a good, strong, like man, this is Syrah. If you were to like concentrate that aroma, well, no, because what I'm thinking is if you concentrate those flavors down into a pungent aroma, that's how I would describe this, but with something bright in it, the unidentifiable citrus. It doesn't smell beery at all to me. I mean, I can smell hops, but it's not beery. Very, very interested in trying this. Alright. I'm going to pop one in. Oh, goodness. Off the bat flavor. Talk about that in the second portion. I'll come back when I finish the 10. I have a feeling this won't take long. It might be tomorrow night. I don't know. I got a couple other things I'm working on too, but oh my goodness. All right, I'll come back with more information and an opinion when I finish the 10. And we're back. I just recorded the entire second segment of this video to look over my computer, which is over here, and see that 15 seconds in it had glitched and stopped recording. So here we go again. Having gone through the Hope and Glory, I am not much closer to being able to adequately describe it than I was when I started. I'm sure that people like Chad at Snoopy or Andreas at Stiff Upper Lip, who have experience with IPA beers, probably come closer to describing it than I would. I'm going to describe it to you the best I can, being a person who is not familiar with IPA beers at all. For one thing, I mentioned in the first segment that there was a message scrawled across the rim here from Connie Anderson, but that it was in Swedish. I did run it through Google Translator, and it translates as, With inspiration from the craft beer scene, I season this craft snooze with classic, powerful American hops. Signed, C. Anderson. Like I said, I don't know a whole lot about hops. I know nothing about the variety named. He mentions that 3 different hops oils were used. One was named as being Centennial. The other was unnamed, and it was a wild hops variety that he came across solely by chance. It just happened to work with this blend. And then the third is still unmentioned. The pre content is listed as being 20%. 20% in the pipe tobacco world, when I started smoking a pipe, would be on the high end. Nowadays, it's kind of in the middle with heavy perique blends. Like off the top of my head, the other night I was smoking some Salud Private Stock Port of St. James, is almost 40% Acadian perique. But again, I have no reference perique in oral tobacco. This is my first experience with it, and the flavors. It's so complex and the flavors meld so well together that I'm still not 100% sure what part of what I'm tasting is actually the perique. I could take guesses, but until I tried some beers with these hops or these flavors in them, I really wouldn't be able to separate it for you. And again, being a recovering alcoholic, that's not something I'm going to do. That said, I'm going to review this to the best of my abilities as somebody who has no experience with IPA beers. So if you have no experience with IPA beer and you're wondering, is this something I should check out, here's my review for you. It starts out with an intense burst of flavor. I've never had any snus, portion or loose, release this much flavor this quickly. The second it goes in your mouth, you are getting the full onslaught of the first half of the flavors and the nicotine all hit you in those first 5 minutes. In those first 5 minutes, what I get is like dark fruit, spice, pepper. Again, very much like the smell was, like a concentrated Syrah. It's also very oily. It coats the tongue really quickly and almost makes it feel numb for a minute. Almost, if you're a pipe smoker, like a mild tongue bite. In this case, it's not unpleasant. It's just interesting. I've never experienced this in a snus before. And I'm not sure if that's coming from the perique content or if it's coming from the hops oils. But that is something that happens. There's also a piney note there, very much like what I described in my review of Lundgren's perforated portion. It's one of the less noticeable flavors, but it is there, and you start to notice it as the flavor transitions. Now, here's where this stuff gets really interesting for me. 5 minutes, like I said, of really intense, you can smell it in your sinuses flavor, all of a sudden shifts, like right at the 5 minute mark, into bright flavors. And this isn't a loss of intensity of flavor. The intensity stays the same. It just shifts completely from dark and almost syrupy to bright and citrusy and herbaceous. At this point, right about the time the pine's kicking in, it starts to shift. The pepper completely disappears. What you get is something somewhat savory, like an herb that I can't put my finger on. There is an elderflower flavor to this. Something maybe a little bit of salmiak. At this point, you can taste the hops, and this is where I lose. I mean, I guess I never really get it, but I really lose the differentiation between the hops and the perique, because I believe that these hops and this perique share a lot of the same characters. This perique, I'm almost certain, is Acadian perique. It shares like a stoved breadiness that I know from that breed of Green River Burley, and it's absolutely delicious. If the taste of the hops and the perique are that similar, then choosing that perique wasn't just a gimmick. It actually is a rarely seen perfect matching of tobacco to flavors. There is a fruitiness, and it's and here I'm kind of sucking on the portion. The fruitiness is kind of in between like a guava and a mango. But then there's the citrus note to it too that I still can't identify. And I've seen in reviews people mention grapefruit. I don't think that's it, and I could totally be wrong. But if I were to guess, grapefruit is what happens when you take the bitterness that is with the hops, which is not a heavy bitterness. It's not unpleasant. It's just another nuance. But if you take that bitterness with that citrus, the brain automatically says grapefruit. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think this is actually grapefruit, because that, with the tropical fruit that I'm tasting, would not taste like what I have in my mouth right now. Again, I'm coming at this blind, but that's what I get with it. This light flavor stays for a very, very long time, whereas the heavy, oily, dark, spicy flavors were there for about 5 minutes. This light flavor is there for a good 30 more minutes. Now, beyond that point, this does start to get overly bitter for me, and at that point, I do take it out. That said, I am motivated to immediately put another one in after that. Alright, so the computer just glitched out again, so I'm going to try to wrap this up as quickly as I can. Hope and Glory IPA, created by Connie Anderson for AG Snus. I can't recommend this highly enough. Like I said in the first segment, I only ordered one can of this because I was afraid that I wouldn't like it, and I wish I'd ordered a roll. This would never be an all-day snooze for me, but this would be an everyday snooze for me. Some stats on it real quick. The can came with 20 portions. Each portion weighs 0.9 grams consistently. The nicotine is rated at 1%, which means there's 9 milligrams per portion. This nicotine releases very quickly though, so it feels more like a Stark portion. It hits really well, which is interesting because it's not a salty snooze at all. I pulled up some prices, if my phone doesn't die, from a couple extra sites this time. Snooze Central has it for $3.35 a can or $28.51 a roll. Snooze 24 has it for $2.76 a can, no breakdowns, so that'd be $27.60 for a roll. Buy Snooze has it for $4.08 a can or $34.78 a roll. Northerner has it for $3.20 a can, $30.20 a roll, and then they actually break down their cans all the way up to bulk ranges, so go on their site to check that out. And Snooze Line does not appear to have it, or if they did, it's out of stock. So yeah, can't recommend this highly enough. Glitch. After I finish recording this video, I'm going to record a video response giveaway announcement, so keep your eyes open for that. That'll go up either later on tonight or tomorrow when I get back from work. It's specifically geared towards people who have YouTube-related or tobacco-related YouTube channels, not necessarily limited to review channels, but YouTube tobacco-related channels. But that doesn't necessarily shut you out if you don't have one. So keep your eyes open for that. It's gonna be very exciting. You guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. God bless, and salud.